right. All right. Well, we are back. We are back, and today we are talking about the long-term vision versus the short-term struggle. Now, I'm going to give it a couple of minutes. I'm going to let some people tune in. I'm going to let the conversation start a little bit, let this thing start rolling. And in about a minute and a half, we're going to start talking about the long-term vision versus the short-term struggle. And so, guys, as you tune in, drop me a message, say hi, let me know you're here. Let me know how training's going, how life's going, how the week started for you. And we're going to get into it in about a minute. If you've got any questions that you want answered, you can start dropping them now. I'm going to do a little bit of Q&A after the episode's over. So drop some questions as you come in, and we will get through those once we're done talking for today. But, excuse me, let's get into it. Still apparently not totally over this respiratory thing I got going on. But Jordan, good seeing you, dude. All right, we're going to get into it, talking about long-term vision versus short-term struggle. We're going to go in 3, 2, 1. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Elite Development Podcast, the #1 show for athletes looking to gain an edge on their opponents and build their dream careers in sport. I am your host, Kenny Dussel, and today we're talking about long-term vision versus short-term struggle. Now, the reason I wanted to get into this one is for a few different things. First off, a couple of stories just about things that I've been up to recently. And then coming from there, we're going to get into a couple of things just about, vision overall, why it's so important, what it can do for you, and how it can help you with struggling long term. With the struggle in the short term. Now, first off, let's talk about me. Now, so last week I was down in Texas at De La Rosa MMA delivering some strength and conditioning seminars. I was talking about basically what I do, how I work it, the things that I've worked on doing differently from what you see in a lot of the industry over the years, and just spent some time working with some of their athletes, helping them improve their strength and conditioning, talking them through, different areas of strength and conditioning, why it's so important and everything like that. Now, the reason I was down there is I got connected with an athlete of mine to get connected with the owners of the gym. We all set it up. I got down, and this has been a vision of mine for a very long time. When I was a kid, I actually, through my school, entered public speaking competitions. And although it always terrified me, I always loved it when I was actually up there doing it. And I was actually winning like regional competitions as a public speaker when I was like 9, 10 years old. So even though at that point I didn't know what I was going to do for a living, I didn't know what life was going to look like, I always had it in my vision that I want to be speaking in front of people. I want to be, impacting larger and larger groups, more and more people in more and more areas. And this was a really cool vision moment, because I remember the first day that I was down at De La Rosa, the team practice ended and they basically called everyone in, and it was a group of 20 pro high-level amateur fighters. And I got to basically just take 10, 15 minutes, talk to them a little bit about what it is I do, and then talk to them about the plan for that upcoming week. And it was a really cool kind of vision moment for that reason, because, this is something that I've been thinking about, again, since I was 9 or 10 years old. And even then, talking about, the long-term vision and the short-term struggle is for this week and for this, this time working with the team, I footed the bill entirely. I was like, I don't want to take a dime from anybody, because, I want to make sure that, I'm going down and I'm just delivering value. This is something I wanted to do for a long time. I appreciate them wanting to have me down. So I'm just going to go down. I'm just going to deliver a bunch of value, pay my own way, all of that. And when I was thinking about it, as I was on the plane down, as I was, on my way over, thinking about how the week was going to go, setting up what I wanted to happen for the week, I remember sitting and thinking, this was a vision. This was something that I've wanted to do for so long, coming down somewhere and just delivering value, delivering knowledge to a group about the subject that I'm passionate about. But this is still just the beginning, So even within this vision, within this thing that, I'm finally doing something that I've wanted to do for so long, I still couldn't help but sit and think, man, I'm paying my own way. I'm doing this all myself. It's kind of set up a little bit randomly, but this is the first step to creating the vision where I'm going to, the biggest MMA gyms in the world and delivering these same kind of seminars, these same kind of workshops to a much larger group of athletes at a much higher level. And they're paying my way and they're paying me money to be there. Not that that was expected with this first time, but it was a cool moment thinking about like this was a vision coming true, but it was also the start of such a bigger vision, right? Because I think as we grow, as we continue to, move forward in life, you start to realize how much more is possible. I think when we're kids, we have these crazy visions for our lives. We're going to be this, we're going to be that, whatever it might be. And then as we get a little bit older, we start to, take away from that vision. Oh, we got to be more realistic. We got to think, whatever. But then when you actually start to strive for what you actually want, you start to realize how much of those crazy visions as kids are actually possible. So, as I was coming down to make this one vision of mine a reality, I started realizing how much bigger that vision had gotten. I didn't want to just stand in front of 20 athletes at a gym and have a conversation. I want to stand in front of the biggest gyms in the world, the highest level athletes in the world, work directly with them and make that same impact that I'm making now on a smaller scale on such a larger scale. Right. And the other place I wanted to go with this topic, long-term vision versus short-term struggle, is I remember moving to Calgary. And when I moved to Calgary, I was moving into a job that literally paid $0. Like, I don't mean like we made shitty money. Like, it was 200 free hours before we were allowed to take clients. And then after we were allowed to take clients, it was up to us to find our own, which is something that at the time I did not know how to do. And so I remember through that time struggling massively financially. Like, I was just watching my bank account just drop through the floor. And every single day I would wake up, I would have less money and I would work for 10, 12 hours. And then I would come home and I would have less money. And when you're working for free, that's kind of just what happens. But I remember the reason that, like, yes, there were ups and downs in that time. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say it was all, all sunshine and rainbows. But I remember the biggest thing that kept sticking out to me in that time when I was watching my bank account drop to the floor, I didn't have any money coming in and like things were just a big struggle. I remember the biggest thing that kept coming back to me was I kept seeing at work at the gym I was at for the first time, I kept seeing other coaches in my industry actually making a decent living. So I kept coming back to the fact that if I just keep showing up, if I just keep doing the right things, if I just keep moving forward, keep not complaining, keep just pushing in the right direction, then I'm going to be them one day too. Right? Because they started where I am right now. And if they started where I am right now and they've gotten to where they are right now, that means that I can get there too. They're not different than me. They're not better than me. They're just further along the process. So no matter how broke I felt, no matter how much I was struggling, anything like that, I kept just showing up again. And the reason that it was almost, I don't want to say easy because it was a lot of hard work that went into it, but the reason that I wouldn't have had it any other way, and the reason that I did continue to show up even when it didn't feel like it was working, even when I was struggling, even when more and more clients were saying no and I wasn't building a business that was actually sustainable, the reason I kept showing up is because I had the vision. I had the vision of what was possible if I continued to show up. I was seeing the people actually making money doing what I'd wanted to do for my whole life. I was around them. I was asking them questions. I was talking to them. I was learning from them. And the reason that this is so important is because now, just 6 years after that happened, I've built a 6-figure business. I have 2 people working for me. I've worked with athletes in 15 different countries around the world. I have a podcast that's been downloaded in every livable continent around the world. One time I said every continent around the world, and then somebody commented on it saying, who's downloading it in Antarctica? And I realized every livable continent, because I don't think there's a population in Antarctica. But either way, that's a story for another day. And basically, I've accomplished more in the last 6 years than I ever thought possible. And the reason that I was able to do that is because I continued to have the vision of what I was moving towards. Now, the reason I say that, and the reason I wanted to get into this, is because I see a lot of athletes every single day quit on themselves. Either money's tight, so they have to forfeit their gym membership for a while. They can't work with their nutritionist or their strength coach, or, they're changing gyms because they're feeling like they're not getting what they need out of this gym. Like they're doing something that is holding them back in some way, shape, or form. And the reason that I believe this happens, the reason that I believe that a lot of athletes aren't willing to go through that deeper struggle, willing to, invest more financially, even though they feel like they're broke, willing to put more time in, even though they feel like the answers aren't coming, is because they don't have the vision. They don't have the vision of what it is they're working for. And then eventually the, hey, this is hard voice outweighs the think about what you're working towards voice. Right? Because that's something that I think is so freaking powerful for so many athletes out there. If you realized that if you're sitting there listening to this right now and you're in a tough spot, you're not sure, how much longer you can keep chasing this dream, how much longer it's financially viable, you're not sure if it's worth it, you're not sure if you're going to make it. Instead of letting that voice win, start thinking about the vision. Because people are very quick to ask, what if it doesn't work out? What if I put all this time and effort towards this thing and it doesn't work out? I'm trying to be an athlete. I spent all this time, all this energy, all this effort into trying to be an athlete. And I don't end up as a professional athlete making a living from my sport. Because that's very real and that's very possible. Anybody listening to this right now, that absolutely could be you. But instead of looking at it that way, which causes that this is hard voice to win and causes you to quit on yourself, look at it the other way. What if it does work out? What if it does work out? And when I ask, what if it does work out, what I really want you to think is, what does that mean to you? Right? Because coming back to the story that I was talking about, when I moved to Calgary, what if it does work out literally just meant making enough money to survive as a strength and conditioning coach, coaching athletes. That was it. And then once I got to there, I realized that what if it does work out now means so much more than that. What if it works out? What if what I'm putting all this time and energy and money towards works out means I'm delivering seminars at the biggest gyms in the world, means I have coaches that are being mentored by me to go out and build their own coaching businesses so that I can help create more high-level coaches in our industry, which is something that we desperately need. What if it works out means that I'm coaching athletes to UFC championships and boxing world championships and Glory kickboxing world championships, jiu-jitsu world championships? I'm the guy that creates champions. That's what it means now if it works out. Right? So as you continue to grow and as you continue to move forward, continuing to think about what if it works out, continuing to think about what that actually means to you, continuing to think about not just I want to be an athlete, but where do you want to compete? How many times do you want to compete? What kind of money do you want to make? What kind of businesses do you want to start through the platform that you're creating from your athletic career? Right? Because now every day when you wake up, every month when you're putting that money towards your strength coach, your nutritionist, your gym memberships, all of that stuff, instead of going, oh God, this is a lot of money and I don't know if I'm going to be able to spend this, you're going, man, this is a lot of money that's going towards me, not just being an athlete, but me winning a UFC championship, me starting a clothing brand that I've always wanted to start when I have that big platform and I can sell it on a larger stage. It means me creating that charity that I've always wanted to create that was really close to home for me. You get what I'm saying? It's about so much more than just, I want to be an athlete. And the deeper that vision is, the more you think about what actually goes into that vision, then the more and more and more you're going to be willing to put into it. Now, coming back to the story I was talking about with, moving to Calgary and all that, now the vision that I have is so much greater and the vision that I have is so much more in depth than it was 6 or 7 years ago, that I'm literally willing to put anything that I can towards it. Over the last 18 months, I have invested probably $70,000 into mentors, business coaches, trips to like trips to like business events, coaching, whatever else I can, because I understand a couple of things. Number one, I understand that I have the ability to make it back because I've built skills through this time working with these business coaches. I've built skills that are going to allow me to continue to grow. Number two, I have a vision that I am set on achieving. I have a vision that I'm set on achieving, and my money doesn't go towards drinking like it did 7 or 8 years ago. It doesn't go towards wearing fancy clothes. 90% of the clothes I own have my logo on them. It doesn't go towards anything other than making that vision come true, right? Because that's one other thing that I see with a lot of athletes is they say, I've got these really big goals, and they're working hard towards these really big goals, and that's awesome. But what starts to happen is as the vision becomes a little more blurry, as you move a little bit further away from it, as you're not sure, what am I really working towards? Is it going to work out? I don't really know. What starts to happen is you start to think, why am I putting all this money towards this? Why am I putting all this time towards this? Why am I putting all this effort towards this? And then instead of putting that extra financial investment into your future and your career, you're starting to blow that money on other things. And when you start to blow that money on other things, don't get me wrong, you're allowed to live your life. That's fine. But when you start to blow that money on other things, and then you start saying, hey, I can't, hire that coach or go to that gym or take that trip to go train at that place I've always wanted to train. What you're doing is you're sabotaging yourself. Because there's going to be someone else out there that's willing to take that same money that you blew on something else and put it towards that trip to go down to that gym to train around those high-level guys that you wanted to train around. They're going to put it towards the nutrition, the strength and conditioning, the recovery, the other things that they need, and then they're going to move ahead of you. So guys, the biggest takeaway from all of this, as I kind of wrap it up, the biggest takeaway I want you to take from this is the importance of vision. The clearer you are on not just, I want to be an athlete, but what you want to accomplish through being an athlete, and whether that's starting businesses, whether that's just, hey, I want to make millions of dollars so I can buy those fancy cars that I've always wanted, whether that's, starting charities and foundations, whether that's starting a YouTube channel, some sort of social media, something, whatever it might be. The clearer you are on not just I want to be an athlete, but everything you want to accomplish around that, the more you're going to be willing to put towards it. And the more you're willing to put towards it, the better chances you're giving yourself of actually achieving the goal. And the final piece on that, the more you're willing to put towards it, the better chance you're actually giving yourself to achieve the goal, right? Because if you're willing to put more time, more energy, more money, and everything like that than the next guy, you're going to put yourself closer to that goal. So instead of saying, I can't, instead of saying, oh, it's just not possible, understand that it is possible. Understand that right now it might not be the right decision for you, but you can put yourself in a better situation if that's what is most important to you. So guys, that's it. That's all. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. I appreciate you all for tuning in. This is truly one of my favorite things to do within my week. If you want to talk more about anything that you heard on the podcast here, if you want to learn more about how we can help you with your strength and conditioning work, or anything else like that, I would love to have a conversation with you. DM me on Instagram, coach_do-so. DM me Fight Ready, and we'll be in touch to talk about how we can help. So guys, that's it. That's all. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your Tuesday, and I will catch you on the next episode. We are going to stick around for a minute, do a little bit of Q&A. So guys, if you have questions,